Hi, welcome back to the Helen Bader Foundation CBRF Caregiver Training Program. Today's unit is on the roles and duties of the CBRF caregiver. It'll be important for you to know what you'll be expected to do as you go to work each day. My name is Marge Gustowiak, and I'm Vice President of Health Services at Three Pillars. Presenting with me today is Mary Cummers. She has been in the caregiving field for 8 years, and I've known her for the last 6. Now it's time to take your pre-test. Like all other units, there will be a pre-test and a post-test. They're both the same and they won't be graded. So turn your video off now to take your pre-test. Welcome back. And Mary, welcome to you too, to your first video presentation here. I hope you will be able to enjoy this time in sharing with what people do in a CBRF as a caregiver. Why don't you start us out by telling us what the general roles and duties of a CBRF caregiver involve?
Well, it's a very big role. You are the link in the chain of that resident's life. For whatever reason, illness, disability, or the aging process, that resident can no longer fully care for themselves, then you're there to assist. But you're also there to give understanding and encouragement to the tasks that the resident is able to do. I'd say that's a very important role.
Yes, I think you've made it clear, and we do emphasize how important the caregiver and the resident are because they work so closely together. And just like you said, you need to fill in those missing pieces for them. In the dementia resident, this is especially important. Can you give some examples of how you work with the dementia resident in identifying these things?
Well, it takes a lot of understanding and a lot of patience. They may have diminishing abilities in memory, understanding, judgment, things like that. So what I try to do is find something that the resident does well, or to use association as a tool.
Okay, I know you've had to do some detective work, and you've shared with me once an interesting example that I really enjoyed, and that was this lady telling you she needed the necessary room. Mary, I need necessary. Tell me how you figured out what she was saying.
Well, Florence is always a happy, sunny person, but this particular day she was definitely stormy, and I knew I had a problem. She was upset with me because I could not locate her necessary. And I looked at her eyes, at her glasses, usually the first thing, but she was wearing them. So I thought, well, and I said, Florence, is it your glasses? No, it wasn't that. Well, we went through a series of questions and answers. And finally, out of desperation, I said, do you need to use the bathroom? And she started to laugh, and she said, yes, the bathroom. And we both laughed so hard because she could not remember bathroom, but she could remember, unbeknown to me, when she was younger, it was called unnecessary.
I enjoy that because I think the dementia population is such a special population, and you do need to become close to them, and you do need to find out what their needs are. Another role you fulfill is a friend, an advocate, and a caregiver. Tell me a little bit how you become a friend or an advocate for the people you work with.
Well, that's exactly it. You are there on their behalf. You're there to speak or to take for them things that they cannot do. In a physical sense, if I notice that a resident has a swollen ankle, I might want to chart and report that immediately. And in an emotional sense, far often than I care to see, I may come upon a resident who's crying. And I want to just embrace that resident, let them know it's okay. I care for them. We all have days like that, and just be a friend.
I think that's a critical role. I know the tasks, making the bed, vacuuming the floors, are kind of easy tasks, but being a friend and an advocate takes a little bit out of you emotionally. And to me, that's really what does make you special, because you do become a friend and you do speak up for them. And in my opinion, that's one of the key roles of a CBRF caregiver. You do need to take care of their personal care needs too. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it depends a lot upon the resident. It might be as simple as assisting them with brushing their teeth, or it might be assisting with clothing or bathing or toileting. I like to divide that into 2 parts. Part 1, because of the nature of these cares, you want to be absolutely certain that you treat that resident in the manner that you yourself would want to be treated. And the second part is to allow the resident to complete a task that they are able to do. It can be very frustrating when you see them struggling and you may have 2 or 3 people down the hall who are waiting for you. Let them complete the task. It is important.
Why do you put so much emphasis on that? Why is it so important? You gave an example once of taking an hour to brush their dentures. Why is that so important to let them do that? You could have that done in 10 minutes for them.
That's true. But we all need a reason for being, a purpose. And the minute that's gone, I have seen it, you will visibly see the decline of that resident.
I really liked how you described that to me once, of someone becoming nothing. If they're able to work at their dentures to keep them clean, it's giving them a purpose. And we've both seen if you take all of those abilities away from them, they literally become nothing.
That's right. We all need to be important.
Another area I know you assist people in is in ambulation. How is that done?
Well, like I said to you, I don't mean it unkindly, but as little as possible. We want them to do everything that they can do. A resident may be able to get to the dining room on their own, but have difficulty sitting or getting up, so I would assist them there. Maybe in the morning they're a little stiff, so I just help them where they need it, but be careful you do it just where they need it.
I like how you keep emphasizing the point that you only do what they need, because as much as we can maintain abilities in any area is so critical. Some CBRFs will require you to do blood pressures, pulses, temperatures, and weights. Why don't you just share an example of those types of duties where you work?
Well, our facility does the vitals, as we call them, only once a month. But you may want to take them if you notice that a resident is perspiring heavily or a slurred speech or confusion, all things that weren't there before, to use them as a guideline.
As a nurse, I know that's important information to have. That brings us very nicely into the next area, and that's what do you do with your observation as far as reporting and recording it?
All facilities have a form of charting, which is called a log, and it's up to us to keep that current, to record any changes in that resident, either positive or negative.
I know another area that you take a look at is medication administration, and in different CBRFs you have different levels of involvement as far as the medication process goes. Tell me what you do at Riverside Lodge.
Well, we give these simple medications, and it's up to us to observe the result of these medications. Maybe an hour later a resident may show sign of nausea or confusion, or there may be a positive reaction, and we want to be sure to record and tell our superior about it.
Right, I think people forget that it's important to look for the expected reaction. For example, to take 2 aspirin for a fever or for some pain, did it work? So the expected reaction of the medication is important for people to also report and record. You do some simple treatments there too. Tell me what a simple treatment is.
Oh, a simple treatment can be as simple as putting a Band-Aid on, or it can be a good old-fashioned back rub, which is a good time for a little one-on-one. Residents love that special attention. They thrive on it.
I know how busy you are when you work, and so it's important to use your time wisely, and I like your sharing that it's a good time to be talking with people. If you need to soak their feet, that might take 10 minutes to use that opportunity to fill your role as a friend and an advocate. I had a former boss once that told me all you nurses ever talk about is bowel movements. And toileting, and I will still talk about bowel movements because toileting is an important part in people's life. Tell me your views on this.
Well, it's all true. And what you said is also true. There's different facets of toileting. We may have a resident who knows that they have to use the facility but has no idea where it is, so we want to be sure that they find it. Or we may have a resident who's on a schedule, a toileting schedule, want to be sure they get there at the proper time. Or there could be a resident who's had a complete accident. And in that case, we want to assist them with a change of clothing and with cleaning them up. And this is where something very important occurs. You want to be sure to observe their dignity. It's a small word, powerful meaning.
I had admitted myself to our nursing home for one day, and the number one thing that hit me was when I needed to go to the bathroom, and I knew other people used that toilet. So I know that's a critical area, and I like the fact that you emphasize the dignity with that. If we just even think of each other or our family, if someone needed to clean us up in that area, how critical it would be that we were always treated with respect during those cares.
You've probably forgotten it, but I took care of you.
Oh, no. I did forget, thank goodness. We all know how important exercise is in our daily life. How do you get exercise accomplished in the CBRF?
Most facilities start the day with exercise, or there may be a specific plan that the physician has set up for a resident. Or it may be just the simple process of going to and from in their daily chores. That's all one resident can handle. It depends upon the resident.
I know how much more tolerable exercise is when I enjoy it. And I think that leads into another role of the CBRF caregiver, and that's activities. Tell me a little bit about activities.
Well, I think that the activities should reflect the individual, something that they enjoyed doing prior to coming to our facility. If they enjoyed working in flowers, we have flowers that they can work in. If they were yard people, we have a lot of branches that they can pick up. Or the more traditional things like singing and crafts, and when all else fails, bingo. Bingo always works.
You know, people always tell me that bingo is like for the old folks' home, and I often think of the big bingo money makers that are out there now. So it's been my experience too. People love bingo. And it has to be an emergency procedure that'll have you stop that game, which takes us into emergency procedures. What do you do in an emergency?
In an emergency, we try to move calmly to a designated area. We need a lot of practice because a resident may become excited when they hear tornado warning signal and ask, what is that? And we certainly don't want to say, oh my God, it's a tornado warning, hurry. Probably not the way we'd want to handle it. So we practice.
So do you think drills are important?
Oh, they're necessary. I mean, it's a break in our daily routine. Residents are used to a routine, and to a certain extent, so are we. So we need to know how to respond in a situation like this. So we practice.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, is feeling comfortable. So when the alarms and the lights are flashing, that you're very calm because you know what to do, and it's just part of your daily routine. You wear many hats as a caregiver in a CBRF, especially the smaller ones. Tell me, what are some of the other things you do in the area of household duties?
Well, it's just like being home. You dust, you vacuum, you launder, you change beds, cook, on and on, just like home.
It sounds like you can really enjoy your time that you spend with the residents, but I know other people are involved. You have a manager or an owner, you may have a nurse, you may have the visitors coming in. Tell me how you deal with communicating with so many different people.
Well, you will communicate a lot. You will communicate with the resident's family, the doctor, the pharmacist, the transport service, on and on. So you want to be sure to have a notebook and a pencil handy so that you can record any messages that you take so that they're taken correctly and delivered promptly.
You're so right. Communication is so important. I would think in a medical emergency, your adrenaline is pumping and there's many things you need to keep straight. Give me an example of a medical emergency you've needed to deal with.
Well, first you have to be absolutely certain that it is a medical emergency. A resident may have fallen, and when they attempt to get up, they complain of a sharp pain in the hip. It's a pretty good chance that that hip may be broken. So you would want to activate the medical emergency procedure, which is generally 911. But you want to be certain before you make that call that you have all your information at hand.
How are you sure you have that information then?
It's usually, not only usually, it is posted by the telephone, so that in this, with your adrenaline pumping, like you said, you don't have to think of those things. That is pre-planned.
I'm sure that's very helpful to have that to let you know what you need to do. Those little postcards or little stickers on the phone are very helpful at those times. I know there's staff meetings and ongoing education series that you participate in. Share a little bit about that.
Well, these meetings are anything that will help you be a better caregiver. They could be as simple as watching a videotape or attending a meeting discussing the residents. And in some cases, you may have difficulty in a particular area, and you would ask your superior. She might supply a video that could help you with it, things like that.
I think it's important that you don't do something you're not comfortable with, and that you are comfortable asking for additional information so you know you're doing a good job.
Yes, it is.
The proper care and response to a resident, how does that get communicated?
Well, you cannot give the proper care and response to a resident unless you know their strengths and weaknesses. So all facilities have what's called an individual service plan. It's there for you. You may look at it at any time, and it's up to you to keep that current and record any changes, good or bad, that you observe in that resident.
This can be a very, very critical tool. I worked in a facility with the developmentally disabled, and anytime there was a fire siren that went off, this one gentleman just went crazy, started screaming and throwing things, and that wouldn't be something people share on an every shift basis. So the individual service plan was a place those types of things can be written down so everybody would know before they would care for that person.
Right.
You also need to provide a safe living and work environment. What are some things you look for in that area?
Well, I think that that particular question you just asked me is just a common sense question. You wouldn't leave a knife on a table. You wouldn't leave something on the floor that a resident or yourself might trip on. And I also think you have to be very careful of small objects on the table that a confused resident may put in their mouth and choke on.
That's a nice complete list of things to be watchful for. I know you're also a strong advocate with resident rights. How come you're so good at that? How do you view those?
Well, it's certainly not because I know all of the residents' rights. I would be lying to you, Marge, if I said I did. But what I try to do is think, what would I like? What would make me happy and what would make me angry? And apply that to the resident, and I have never, in all the years I have worked as a caregiver, had a problem.
I like that way of viewing it. The resident rights by regulations are required to be posted in all the facilities. You get them as an employee, the families get them as family members, the resident gets it as someone new to the facility, so people are handed this packet of resident rights, and it's not meaningful unless you can somehow live it and incorporate it into your work, and I like how you view that because I think it's a very effective way of doing that.
Well, thank you very much.
Mary, before we go to the post-test, why don't you tell me what you think the most important role of the CBRF caregiver is?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to have a genuine love for these wonderful people, and you have to have good care skills. And an area that I have a lot of problem with is when we do lose one of these residents, I think you have to be able to adjust and go on. And I have a little bit of a problem with that.
Mary, thanks for sharing those special thoughts with us today. It's now time for the viewers to turn the video off, to take the post-test, and Mary and I will be back with the answers. Welcome back. We'll now give you the answers to your test. First one, caregiver, friend, advocate. The answer is H.
Take time to be with a resident. I know you're busy, but it's important.
Number 2, medications and effects. And the answer is F.
Report nausea after giving resident a pill, and also anything positive that you may observe.
Number 3, simple treatments. And the answer is I.
Apply lotion to a resident's rash, and don't forget the back rub.
Or the time spent to talk with them, right?
Absolutely.
Number 4, my favorite, toileting. And the answer is K.
Assist resident after loss of bowel control. Remember, dignity.
Number 5, emergency events. And the answer is L.
Respond to the fire alarm by evacuating residents. Calmly, calmly.
Number 6, activities. And the answer is J.
Play cards with the residents or anything else that they might enjoy.
Number 7, medical emergency. And the answer is B.
Call 911. Be sure you have all the information at hand.
Which brings us into number 8, communications. And the answer is E.
Talk with the pharmacy regarding an order. Make absolutely certain that you understand all the directions that he has given you.
Number 9, household duties, and the answer is A.
Put laundry in the washer. Just the tip of the iceberg.
10, staff meeting, ongoing education, and the answer is D.
Watch a video on safe bathing or a video that you may request additional information on.
Number 11, safe environment, and the answer is G.
Turn the night lights on at bedtime. In our facility, the night lights are always on, but if they're not, you want to be sure that they are.
Number 12, your favorite, resident rights, and the answer is C.
Allow a resident to refuse his meds, but be absolutely certain when you do this that that resident knows the results that could occur because of refusing the meds.
Thank you again, Mary, for being with us and sharing your comments today. It's important that you understand your role as a CBRF caregiver. Take it seriously, but have some fun. Keep on learning, become a part of your residents' life, and remember to treat them with dignity and respect, and you will become a top CBRF caregiver. This concludes the unit on the roles and duties of the CBRF caregiver.